Let me close by describing one more school that we're working with. This is a school called Eagle Academy in the South Bronx. A school that was designed to serve young men because of concerns that too many young men in this community were dying at a young age. Dying because of gang violence, ending up incarcerated because of activities in gangs and crime. And so the educator, the founding principal, David Banks, decided they needed to create a school where the culture of the school was more powerful than the culture of the streets. That was their founding mission. And we've been working with him at the school for the last 5 years now. And what we've seen is that you can take even young people, young men, who have been turned off to school, and create a school setting that is so compelling that you can change mindsets about learning. First time I ran into the young man from Eagle was on the subway. And anybody who takes the subway in New York City knows the worst time to take the subway is about 3:30. Because 3:30 is when school lets out. And lots of kids on the train, and it's loud, noisy. Unfortunately, I was on the subway that day, heading uptown, and I see 3 young men in ties. And one of them offers his seat to an older passenger. So I'm wondering, who are these guys? They are from Eagle Academy. They were coming from the Museum of Natural History, headed uptown. I said, what made you offer that seat? They had no teacher with them. He said, well, that's the way we do things at Eagle. So I said, well, I need to find out more about what you're doing at Eagle. So I go to the school, and what I learned is that their strategy for creating a school that can counter the influence of the streets is to create a prep school for these kids, these young men in the Bronx. So like a prep school, they offer debate, they offer chess, they offer fencing, and one of their most popular clubs is their robotics team. Their robotics team. 3 years ago, their robotics team came in 6th place in the regional competition. Now, 6th place was pretty good out of 80 teams. They started celebrating when I gave them the news because I was a judge. But I said, but you know what? Only the top 3 teams get to go to the finals at the Georgia Dome. And the top 3 teams, if you know New York City, were Stuyvesant, Bronx Science, and Brooklyn Tech, the top 3 exam schools that screen students. So they said, well, 6 is pretty good. I said, I agree. I said, explain to me how you built the robot. So first one takes out his notebook and explains to me the physics behind the robot. Because this is not simply about tinkering with the parts, it's about understanding how the arm is supposed to move and all the pieces work together. I was very impressed because I couldn't understand the word of it. I said, okay, well, who helped you build the robot? He said, well, the first person to help us was our custodian. I said, your custodian helped you build a robot? They said, yes, he got us the parts. We don't know where he gets the parts from, but anytime we need something, he gets it for us. It's very important. I said, well, who else helped you? They said, well, our science teacher helped us. And he's there and he's asleep in a chair. I said, wow, this guy's out of it. And he said, that's because I was up till 3 in the morning with these kids working on the robot. I said, you guys were up till 3 in the morning? They said, listen, these kids have been working weekends, they work evenings. For the last 3 months, all they focus on is building this robot. I said, you guys work weekends and evenings? They all shook their head. I said, you get paid? You get paid? No, nobody gets paid. Nobody gets extra credit. Teacher doesn't get extra credit. I said, what gets you? He says, their enthusiasm keeps me going. I said, okay, but you're not going to the Georgia Dome. What's next for you guys? What do you want to do next? And they were all juniors. And every one of them said the same thing. They said they want to be mechanical engineers. Now what you should know is these are kids who come from neighborhoods where there are no mechanical engineers. Hard to aspire to be something you've never seen. But they think they can because they built this robot. Because they were part of something that allowed them to see how what they were learning could be applied in the real world. And they're lucky enough to be a part of a school where it's actually cool to be smart.
Right.
Now I believe if you can do that in the South Bronx, if you can do that in the Eastern Cape, if you can do that in Newark, you can do that lots of places. I do believe it takes a different approach. It takes embracing our schools in ways that we haven't typically. And that means businesses getting involved, hospitals, universities, retired people, all working much more to support schools because it's in our interest. It's not charity. Some people think of it as charity. It's actually in our interest to do this work. It's in our economic interest, our political interest, and certainly in our social interest.